Bailey, someday you're going to have to explain to me why it is that you walk off like a minute and a half before we're supposed to go live and then show up again at the last possible moment. I
Ooh.
just don't understand that behavior.
I think it's because I have to be difficult.
Well,
Well, you are
yeah,
a superstar.
That's
that's
right.
true.
Superstar gonna do what superstar gonna do.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
Maybe
that
it's a
that
ritual.
I'm pretty sure that walking out is not in the contract though, but I could be wrong. Hi
Well,
everybody.
Hi.
Good
Welcome to
evening.
hello.
Sidebar,
Hello.
where we talk about sides and we talk about bars. That's why we named this show
I
that way,
know
right?
lots about both.
There you go. So we have Ashley, Bailey, Michael, and me tonight, and we're gonna take a Bailey Davis hard right kind of sort of, but it's not brought on by Bailey for a change. This one's kind of on me. I came up with this idea. So obviously, we watch people getting judged every day here at TCF, but if you think about it, the judging doesn't just stop with the judge. How often in the comments or me when I turn on my mic and start screaming into it and stuff like that, are we actually sitting in judgment of the people that we watch ourselves? We judge whether or not what was done was right. We judge the performance of the judge. We judge the statements of the defendant. We judge the performance of the lawyers, all these things. So that got me thinking even deeper. How often, as a society, do we sit in judgment of those around us outside of court? We see something that we don't like and we look at it cross-eyed, or we say something out loud, and kind of project our own values and whatnot. And then the question becomes, should we be doing that? Is it the right thing as a society to sit in judgment of others and call people out when we see things that aren't quite right? Or is it something that should be verboten and we should never do that and people should just be allowed to live their lives and it is what it is? So that's kind of what was on my mind when I came up with this topic, and there's a whole lot of directions we could go with it.
Mhm.
But since it was mine, I will start and I'll tell you where I'm at right now, and then you guys can chime in and we'll see where it goes. I think that sitting in judgment of others, when done properly, is essential. I think that a society needs it to keep it on the rails and not getting derailed. I think that it promotes community standards when done right. And honestly, along the same lines, I'm concerned with people's ability to take criticism and their lack of the ability to take criticism, because part of sitting in judgment is being critical. And criticism and judgment is often where we can grow, where we can learn, how we can get better. And it personally concerns me that we've lost that art as a society in so many different ways. We're the whole, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, that parents used to preach for the longest time. I don't know if that's necessarily the right thing to preach. Sometimes what we have to say isn't nice, but it's constructive and it's needed.
Mhm.
And sometimes people have to be called out a little bit. And that includes all of us here. I should be called out, in my opinion, when I do things that are out of line or when something isn't right. Somebody should be sitting in judgment of me going, Dan, you should really rethink this. And that's how we grow and get better too. But that's kind of where I'm at to start with. Anybody think the same or different? Want to speak up?
I have a different take, but
Cool.
kind of similar to yours, Dan. So I agree that judgment plays a positive role in keeping society accountable. However, yeah, and judging behavior encourages growth and accountability. But I don't agree in condemning people. Um, I am more in favor of judging the actions of people, but not judging people in general. Um, that's just my personal viewpoint. Because people rush to criticize people as a whole without context, because nobody knows exactly what that other person is going through. So I rather judge what that person has done, like in terms of behavior, than that person themselves. I don't feel like that's my place to do that.
I find that interesting, and I'd like to better understand it. Could you give me an example of like each side of it, just to clarify, perhaps?
Sure. So, in terms of behavior, so judging, someone stole somebody's car, and now they're in court for it. I would judge that I would say that the act of stealing somebody's car is wrong, and I would criticize that issue. However, I can't say that that person is a bad person just because they stole that car, because I don't
Okay.
know the qualities of the person as a whole. So I don't want to be critical of that person just because they made a bad action.
Well, okay, I get what you're saying, because people do make mistakes. I've made them. The three of you here have undoubtedly made them as well. That's just part of the human experience. So I would agree with you there. But
Correct.
Yeah.
you said you don't want to be critical of them, if I heard you correctly.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Would it not follow that if somebody makes a bad choice, that you are critical of them for that choice?
I would be critical of the action they took, not critical of that person.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not saying that you say, you're the most evil, worstest, bad person.
Mm-hmm.
But would it not be wise to say, I have some criticisms of your actions. I think that was a bad choice that you made, and you probably shouldn't do that again. Would that be wise?
kind of along those lines, Dan. That's
Okay.
kind of what I'm thinking.
Is it sort of a love the sinner, hate the sin kind of thing, Ashley? Is that what you're saying?
Kinda. I just think that we should judge with fairness and compassion with people, and not hostility and ego. I feel like that might clarify things. Just kind of hate the problems that person is doing, but not the actual person that's committing them.
I don't think we disagree at all. That's kind of the point that I was hoping to make to start off with. I don't think that it does us any good to say, you did this bad act, therefore you're a bad person.
Right.
But you can sit in judgment of the action, and you can sit in judgment of the person's choice for taking that action. And I think that has validity. It doesn't mean that the person has no worth.
Correct. Yeah, you can't judge you can't judge a person by a single action is what I'm trying to get to.
No, I agree. Life is a tapestry, and it's got good threads and bad threads, but you start pulling at any of them and the whole thing falls apart.
And to be honest, Dan, when we sit and watch court, we're only seeing one side of the story with these people. And I have to kind of draw myself back and think about that personally, because sometimes I am quick to judge somebody just by that action or and yeah, I just have to take a step back and remind myself there's more aspects to this person that I'm probably not seeing as well.
Well, we see one side of them until their criminal history is read. Then we often see more. I don't know. What do you think, Michael?
I mostly will agree. I say mostly because, yes, I think just because somebody, let's say, engaged in reckless driving, right? Does that mean they're a terrible person? No, it doesn't. Just because you do something bad, we've all done bad things. We can sit here in the chat and sometimes we poke fun at some of these people, and sometimes we'll say something like, "Man, what a really what a jerk thing to do," or whatever. We have a lot of opinions.
We use jerk thing a lot.
Yes.
Thank you for editing yourself, Michael.
Well, hey, not all of us are gonna throw out the bad words. But I will say there are some times where I think I can safely say that a person is a bad person when I hear some of the things that they do. And I try not to be the kind of person that's going to say, hey, I'm better than you. I'm looking down my nose at you. You're pathetic. I'm not. Now, there are occasions where I'm like, hey, man, I am better than you because I would not do that. And I'm talking about the most heinous, like when we see people doing bad things to animals or to children or whatever.
Yep.
No, that's a bad person. Like, look, I was just talking to Michelle about this today. So I don't know if you guys know who Ian Watkins is, okay? But he was the lead singer of the band Lost Prophets. Lost Prophets was an alternative rock band from the early mid 2000s, and they were, on the rise. But in 2012, Ian Watkins got popped for some very, very heinous things that he did to not just children, but in one case, a baby. Okay. Very, very gross things. So it came out that, some of his fans, like some of the fans would like offer up their children to him. And anyway, gross, awful person. See, that I'm going to say horrible human being. Okay. Just piece of crap.
And the people that offered up their children. Well,
right. And those people that engage and people that are that defend him or that are, like the fans of this guy. Believe it or not, there are some people that actually are like, big deal. There are those people. I laugh only because it sounds like I'm making it up, but I assure you, if you look into it, I am not. Well, anyway, he got shanked in prison again, and this time did not survive. 2 people attacked him in prison, and he died. And, I was like, hey, good. That's, that was like one of those things where, the trash got taken out. And that's fine by me. And, that might make me a judgmental person, but I think in that particular instance, that's fine by me. If you want to call me judgmental because I feel that a person that did horrible things, and by the way, he admitted to doing it. He had, not only did he not have any remorse, he said he did it. And again, not making this up, he said, I did it for the lulz. Wow. So there are times where I think being a judgmental person is just fine. Dan kind of said it off the top of the show. I think it is necessary for society. Now, you look, just because you see somebody walking down the street with tattoos, my mom would always be, those tattoos, I don't know about that. He's got the whole sleeve of tattoos on his arm now. Oh, and she, but it's a different time, it's a different perspective. I don't think someone that has tattoos is a bad person. I'm not saying my mom thinks that, but she, looks at somebody a little differently. We all do that to a degree. There's a big difference, though, I think, between a little bit of prejudice or something and standing and looking down your nose at somebody. But I mostly agree with you, with you guys about it. It's just there are some cases where it's like, yeah, that's an evil person and it's okay to stand in judgment.
Yes. I think that's part of the job of a judge, particularly during sentencing. Part of it is to admonish the defendant, to help them understand the severity of the charges that they have been found guilty of. And now a judge has to lay down the law and figure out what to do. And they're literally judging that person, their actions, how they dress, their demeanor, all of it. All of that matters. But when it comes to the defendants that we see on this show, where I kind of keep myself in check, where I don't get too judgy, is I always remind myself, Bailey, that could have been you. That shoplifting thing, you were shoplifting, and you got away with just trespass from the grocery store. Yeah, like we're all, like Dan makes a really good point. We're all one choice that could land us in, life happens and we could be in these situations. And I would hope that I would be judged on my merits, on my actions, fairly and squarely. That's all I would want. I can take a butt chewing from a judge. You should hold yourself to a higher standard. You're a veteran. You should know better. You know what I mean? You have an education. You went to school. You got a great job. I would expect a judge to kind of chew me out a little bit, and you just got to take it. You got to take it. And so judges are very careful about doing it in a very professional way, courteous way, because a defense attorney will stand up because there could be appeal issues. Suddenly, you could be tampering. Like if the judge is giving opinions on the facts of the case, a defense attorney might stand up, be like, "Okay, judge, I appreciate the, maybe take it down." But most judges, I think, know how to do a proper admonishment that is both the legal thing and a judgy way.
And
Well-
and to piggyback off Bailey, I think there's a difference between constructive judgment, and condemnation. And I think that's what I was trying to get at before. Like condemning people is just punishes people. But constructive judgment is actually trying to promote growth in someone based on those actions.
So if you just kept in your pants, is that constructive growth and criticism?
I was going to say, because we've
Yeah.
Judge Stevens today, Judge Oakley regularly, they do comment on the facts of the case, Bailey. They don't just, it's not just like they're, there are things that those judges say that, by the way, I happen to agree with and like those judges for.
They're colorful language.
But they are, very colorful. Mr. Interrupter. This morning, Judge Stevens really gave it to this guy. And again, he had it coming to him.
Rude guy, Mr. Man, and Mr. Interrupter. I wrote it down this morning.
I
also
thought
called him a
Judge,
bully.
yeah, I thought Judge Stevens was going to get off the bench and throw down with that guy.
But only in Texas would he say Mr. At least he was saying Mr. He was being polite.
He's still got to give respect, of course. That was something else, and and Judge Oakley saying, keep your in your pants,
Hey, he's not wrong.
But he's no, and I think that, who else to judge but a judge?
Yes.
And there's sometimes I think, and we've talked about this on previous episodes. Dan and I maybe are maybe curmudgeons in this regard, but I'll stand by it to my last breath, and that is sometimes it's okay to tell people you're wrong. You did wrong. That wasn't the right thing to do. That's bad. It's actually, it's okay to admonish people for bad behavior or for doing something, or just to say, hey, that's not how we do things.
Right.
Yes.
It's okay to say that. I know we've gotten into this thing in society where we have to accept everyone's behavior for what it is, and everybody has a background and a justification for it. But
mob mentality too.
And I will say, and when Ashley was talking earlier about, we don't know the person's context and how they grew up, and again, I'm not saying we ignore that. We should not. Right. Even people that do terrible things to children, or people that are spousal abusers or child abusers or whatever. Now, I think that's a horrendous thing to do, but maybe that person was abused, and maybe that person, oftentimes that's what happens. People learn that might makes right, and then they grow up, and that's exactly what they do to other people, and it's shameful.
Well,
what you're saying, Michael, it's like it's a form of accountability,
right?
To call out that action, to say that's a wrong thing. You're being accountable and constructive in that,
right?
In that way,
and we've lost that. We've lost that in society, I think, to a degree. Not only accountability to ourselves,
Yes.
But sometimes it's okay if I saw Dan doing something that was wrong. I say, hey, listen, Dan, you messed up there. That wasn't right to do that. And then, in a normal society, Dan would be like, you know what? You're right, Mike. I messed up. You got me. My bad. It's like, it's okay to, sometimes if we could just step back from ourselves a little bit, swallow the pride and say, I messed up. I think that would go a long way.
I think also
Michael,
in debate form too, we call each other out. Like, if we don't like somebody's idea, we can't just call that person like, oh, you're such and such,
Right.
It's just the ideas.
You're a doo-doo head.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Dan.
So no, Michael, you were saying who else to judge but a judge? I would again argue all of us. Because
well, right, I agree.
Because I think society needs it. And to Ashley's point, I don't think it's to, or at least it shouldn't be, to belittle as much as to bolster up and grow. Bailey, you gave an example of how it was just a trespass for an action.
Yeah.
But would you have benefited if somebody within your community, before any of that, had discovered what you might have been doing and took you aside and said, hey, dude, that's not right. Knock it off, before it ever got to the point where you get caught? And that's I guess where I'm at with sitting in judgment of others. It's to be corrective. It's to help hold each other accountable, which then in turn makes for better people, which in turn makes for a better society. But there's like no accountability for anything anymore. Everybody's too scared to speak up and say something. And then the next thing you know, little Johnny's got 5 felonies.
And that's exactly it, Dan. It's like we shouldn't, if more, hi Freya, if more people just pulled people aside before it ever got to that point and said, hey, maybe you don't do that. Obviously the court systems may not be as clogged up. The prison systems may not be overflowing. And I'm not, whenever I talk about this stuff, I know whenever we go on about this, there's always going to be the people that say, you just want it to be like it was in the 50s or whatever. No. Yeah. But I think that it's just one of those situations where, hey, man, it's okay to, as a community, to kind of look out for each other. And sometimes, I don't say you go and mock someone because they have tattoos or because they wear their hat backwards or because they wear baggy pants or, the kinds of things that don't matter and don't change. They're not crimes. They're not criminal. They're not bad. They're just your personal preference. There's a big difference between what you think is fashionable or whatever, and you want to call that out, versus an actual harm to society or to someone's own being. Like, yeah, if you see someone doing a line of coke, maybe you pull them aside and go, I don't know if that's something you ought to be doing.
Yeah.
That's where a community can really be helpful.
And I think, Dan, do you have anything?
No, go ahead.
I'm going to pivot a little bit. You were talking about the 50s, Michael, and how judgment back then, people still judge back then as they do now. Well, I think today is worse off and about judging others, just because of the social media context behind judgment. So we live in a fast-paced society now because of technology. Where I want to go with this is that people see people online, but they don't know that whole person or the context and automatically blame or judge as person by said post or said thing that person said. And I've been thinking about it, and I think that's different than it was before. We're so quick to jump to conclusions as a society. in terms of judgment and thinking that somebody's actions make that person who they are. And in reality, that's not the case.
I don't know why this keeps coming back as like a case study, but the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, I swear I'm not preparing this in advance. But when the state was getting his butt chewed by the judge because he violated like Rule 8 or something by bringing up the defendant's pre-trial silence, which is Law 101. You do not blame someone for being quiet before they go to trial. That's just not what we do here. And the attorney was attempting to try to, what's the word? Catch him in a lie. What's that word? I'm trying to
impeach him.
Anyway. And the lawyer had to be admonished and was almost caused a mistrial. So my point being is there are functions and tools in the courts that they can control judgments in certain ways. When the jury comes in, they are voir dire. We don't just take anybody off of the bus stop and just pile them in and just say go. They are given very specific rules, written and spoken. And so there's all these steps to ensure that we are giving them the fair trial that's being weighed simply on the evidence and the testimony that you have seen. And yes, human beings are very judgy people. We're very good at it. We're very good at it. I think that's some crazy number. It's like less than a second you can get an impression of somebody. And it really sticks.
I would argue that we're really bad at it. But
I'm
in the modern sense, for sure, to
Right.
Ashley's point about social media and all that,
Yeah.
I wouldn't call people on social media lining up underneath a tweet to say how bad somebody is. I wouldn't call that judgment. I would call that team insanity.
Yeah, that's the garbage.
That's not really what,
They
what
become,
I'm talking about here.
It's a mob
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah, and they become digital jurors, so they don't know the full context of a situation. So they become in a way, a digital juror, and that's something I was thinking about because there's such an instant reaction culture these days. We've been talking about it in terms of juries and things of that nature. That I think it impacts this situation too about judgment. That instant reaction, is this a good person or bad just by their profile, it's not good. It's not something that's great for society, to be honest.
No, I think you have to be judged by people in your community.
That's true.
You know, people that have the same morals and standards that you do, perhaps people that know you. Like I would have no issue with the three of you sitting in judgment of something that I did because you know me, you've spent time around me, and you understand me, and you would know kind of what my motivations might be and how it is that I have failed. You know what I mean? As opposed to John Smith 8427B, you know, who knows nothing about me. So, yeah, I agree that people online doing these judgy things doesn't help.
No.
But I do think that doing it in a more local manner has been lost, and I think it needs to be revived.
Yeah,
Right,
it should be
neighborhoods,
flip-flopped,
community.
and it's
Yeah.
not. And it's
Yeah, everything's
backwards.
on this global scale now so that you get recognized, when really what needs to happen is locally down in the trenches. You know, your community, your set of peers, your local church group or whatever,
Yeah.
Right.
holding each other accountable is where stuff should really happen. But we've just totally lost all of that. And we've lost
Right.
it in the places where it really needs to happen too.
Yes, Dan, that's exactly what I was thinking here is, you know, again, I think we are kind of a bunch of, you know, Gladys Kravitzes that are, you know, busy watching what everyone else is doing and judging people for the wrong things. Like, again, like to me, it doesn't matter what someone's lifestyle is if they're not hurting anybody else.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not going to say it, you know, we focus on these things that are it's none of our business. Like who you're married to, what kind of clothes you wear, that kind of stuff is what people get so worked up about. And that's the kind of stuff that we shouldn't be judging about. That's the kind of stuff we should be accepting of. Or if we don't like it, there are times where it's okay to just, shut your mouth and keep your opinion to yourself.
Right.
Where it does matter is when people are hurting other people, when they are hurting the community at large. And I know some people will say, well, being gay or being whatever, there are people that are just going to say that hurts the community, which is silly. Who you choose to be with, what you choose to wear, what your tattoos or your jewelry or the music that you listen to or whatever, that's not hurting other people.
Right.
So that's the difference in all of this. And, when we were talking about this topic, when we were coming up with this topic, and that's, I was thinking, I know that there are people that think that that's what matters in society somehow. And that shapes the person, the clothes make the man and all that, but that's silly. And unfortunately, I think that's where we've gotten to in society too, is I know we all make our snarky comments in the chat about sometimes, sometimes we like fingernail lady or whatever, there's
the Monday fashion show,
and again, there are times where we judge people. Now, to me, there's a little bit of a difference in if you show up to court wearing a Beavis and Butthead shirt or, you got a shirt with sexual organs on it or whatever, with a swear word on it for court. Yes, I'm going to mock that because that's not a very smart choice, right?
You're saying he shouldn't have shown up in court wearing world's best farter?
You're judging their action of going
right. I'm not necessarily judging them. Maybe I am a little bit because I do wonder what I do. Okay, I will admit. I mean, yes, I do kind of go, hey man, what goes through your mind when you roll out of bed and you're like, okay, I got to get to court. Let's see. I could put on a button down, or maybe I put on the Beavis and Butthead shirt. I don't know. Maybe Judge West will like it. Maybe the judge is a fan of Mike Judge and Beavis and Butthead. I'll wear that. I wonder what's going to happen. Judge Boyd might like that.
Well, that you just nailed it as to why that shirt was worn that day. It's because it's Mike Judge, the judge.
Very good.
That's how the connection was made in their mind. I'm going to slightly disagree with you, Michael.
Okay.
I think there is, and for the record, I'm not talking about who you love, but I do think there is a point where you, especially in your closest group, maybe some people should be a little bit judgy with you and help you with how you present yourself. Because whether or not you like it, the rest of society, especially when you want to go do things like get a really good job and stuff like that, will judge you based on your appearance.
Oh, so, I agree with you, Dan. I agree with that.
I'm sorry, but if I'm looking for a high-level position and I've got clean-cut guy or a clean-cut girl or dude with a neck tattoo, all other things being equal, dude with a neck tattoo is probably not going to make the cut. Because people are going to walk into the office, they're going to see him.
Right.
And they're going to make their judgment, and that judgment will reflect upon the business.
And Dan, it's going to it makes a difference to some people. Like for me, I mean, I might be able to see it because my eyesight is, I'm being legally blind makes me a little bit different in that sense that I might see it because, some neck tattoos are very obvious and some are not so obvious. So maybe I don't see it. And so I may not know the difference, all things being equal. Maybe to me, neck tattoo guy, I don't see it. So what do I know? So and in a way that's given me a different perspective, right? So sometimes there's things I don't see about people that other people might. And I have to rely more on someone's personality and their interaction and some of the things they say versus some of the more subtle things about them. Yeah, I can see a sleeve tattoo. Yeah, a lot of stuff. And in a certain situation up close, I might be able to see it, but from far away, I don't. And so that person, to me, they may have a big snake or a whatever, and I don't see it. And so what difference does it make to me as long, if they're not if they're not a dick. I mean, it's
Well,
like,
and
so
that's why I said all things being equal.
right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if Neck Tattoo has this just incredible personality and a resume that's 2 miles long and all this success and whatnot, then, you know, that changes the game. But
Right.
I think you have to consider, and this is part of why I think it's important for us to within our inner circles be judgmental of each other and have some accountability for each other, because there are also the facts of the world, and
Right.
whether we like it or not,
Yeah.
you know,
No, you're
not
right, Dan.
everybody is going to be accepting of every single thing. And if you
Yeah.
put yourself into a position where you're more likely to be not accepted by large groups of people, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And I think it's a responsibility, and I think it's also compassionate for those who are close to you to say, hey, you know, your life, however, if you're going to go down this road, here's the obstacles you're going to face.
Right.
So I'm not sure this is a good idea. And
Right.
kind of, you know, be in judgment of people that way. Again, from an accountability for themselves, because some people don't see it. You know, they
Right.
get into what they like and what
Right.
they want,
Yeah.
but they don't see the long-term ramifications that they can potentially have from it. And that's where, as a society,
true.
I think we've gotten off track, because everybody just goes, oh, let them live their life, let them do their thing, you know. Everybody,
judge.
you know, don't judge. Just, you know, you
And
don't know,
Right.
And that's great to a
sometimes that's
point.
okay, but
It's
as a-
great to a point, but at some
Yes.
point, the world's going to slap you back in the face for the choices
Right.
that you've made, and you're going to go, "Geez, I wish somebody would have said something."
I don't think some of these people are
Yeah.
even capable of being.
And I think there's a
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I
Bailey.
don't know. Some of
You
these
got it.
people wouldn't even be able to, like, even if you told them and you sat them down, you know, I think some of them, I know some people in my life that are just, you know, they're family, so I can't get rid of them. But I talk to them and,
Well.
you know, they think differently. They're not quite
Well.
insane, but I call them the normals. These are just the normal people out there who are just, you know, just getting through life somehow and just not really thinking too critically. But
And-
I try not to judge. And so that was my question to go to you guys. Are we talking about judgment for context, or are we talking about judgment for retribution?
Oh, not retribution. That's the purpose of the judge.
Okay. Okay.
In my opinion. But
Yeah.
but I do think that, again, there has to be judgment from an accountability standpoint. You need to be able to look at how somebody is acting around you and go, that's not right. Stop it. Or you need to go, hey, that's probably not a great choice, and here's why. Your call, but here's what I'm seeing. And have that kind of dialogue with each other. Have that level of accountability so that we all grow and we all learn. Wahoo put in the comments, it's easier for people to punch down rather than lift up. Exactly what I'm talking about, Wahoo,
Yeah.
is the idea of lifting people up through some judgment and accountability, especially on a local level, within your
Yeah.
peer group, within your family, within your community. And we
think that's-
don't do that. And everybody
Yeah.
just kind of runs roughshod now. And how much regret is out there because somebody didn't take somebody aside at some point and say, dude, wrong.
I think family is a big thing with that, Dan.
Yeah.
I think parents have lost that capability, or some parents have lost that capability of addressing issues that they see with their kids and putting a stop to it before it becomes a bigger thing, or they simply just turn a blind eye to things. That's kind of my opinion on that. I feel like parents especially need to, it's back where we talked about before, that some parents are not meant to be parents just because they need to foster that relationship with their kid and tell that kid that no, it's not okay to do that, so that kid doesn't go down the wrong path, because one thing can lead to another, which can lead to another, which can lead to another. If you stop that snowball effect right at the beginning and tell them no, it's not okay to do this, it might prevent them from going to jail and being on TCF. So things like that. But I think the biggest point Dan, that you brought is the community as a whole needs to hold somebody accountable. And this does not include internet people at all.
Right.
It's the people that you're surrounded with.
Yes.
I think people mix those up. I feel like people think that online is a community as well, just because they're there so much. That's where they spend the most of their time. And I think online judgment is especially toxic to someone, and it doesn't hold them accountable. Some people might disagree with me, but I don't think it holds somebody accountable to the extent that a actual community can, just because they don't know that other person one-on-one, and it feeds outrage and polarization to an extent. That's why we're so polarized as a country, mostly because of the judgment of the media. And I feel like that family unit and that community needs to be in place far before any outside influences at all.
We live in a very different world today than we did growing up.
Yeah.
We're more isolated, even though we are technically on, according to this, more connected. But are we really connected?
No.
To me, I don't really know you unless I break bread and I shake your hand or something. You know what I mean? And I look at you face to face, and to me, that's how you judge somebody. You don't judge them by their comments or even some of the goofball things I might say on Sidebar, and embarrass myself. But for me, I don't really care what people think about me and what they judge. I really don't. I really don't. There are certain things that I had to check on myself, and I talked to you guys about that privately, that I had to correct. But other than that, I don't really give a what people think. Because I got my stuff in order, and, I would care what a judge would think, if I messed up, and I would absolutely be in there, and I'd be kissing butt. I'd be in there like I would take responsibility so that I didn't have to get my butt chewed so heavily and just take accountability for it. It's way easier just to say, I messed up. I'm sorry. Like Mike was saying earlier, I'm going to face the music. And
Bailey, I have a question for you now.
Go for it, man.
You said that you don't know somebody unless you break bread with them. Do you know me? We've never broken bread.
You know what? I was thinking about it this morning. I'm like, we spend so much time, all of us, staying in touch with each other. So I feel like there's an exception. There really is an exception, because we do spend a lot of time together, coordinating the show and staying in touch, that I talk with you guys more than I talk with my family, and you know what I mean. So.
Which leads me back to what Ashley was saying about how online isn't a good place to judge, and it's not a good community kind of situation. There are exceptions to it if you build it right, and I think this is one of the exceptions.
I don't know if it's a complete exception, Dan, but it's a pretty close one. I wouldn't say you can judge somebody completely on what you see online, but
I think Ashley, what you were trying to say was like, it's not a replacement for a real friend.
Yeah,
that's
correct. The community online, you got to be in touch with people and see face to face and meet up, and you got to get out of the house and away from this, because this is not community. As much as we have a beautiful community here,
correct,
and we've everybody here we kind of like-minded. What do you call it? The sane people? We're the sane people, right?
Yes, we're Team Sanity.
Sanity.
But I do want to point out that it is possible to have something online. But again, I think it's more the exception than the rule, unfortunately. But I would trust the three of you, and I think I said this earlier, I would trust the three of you to sit in judgment over me because of the community that we've built, more than I would trust my neighbor, to be honest with you, or more than I would trust John Simpson 2546, who randomly posts something on one of my videos.
Yeah, interaction is I do agree with you there. Interaction does play a role in that.
So we've gotten to know each other. So
and I agree with that. If I could, just because when I thought of this topic, or when we were talking about this, and I was thinking about this today, and this is a little bit of a right turn, but there is this interesting part about judgment and sort of this, there's a bit of moral relativism, right? And kind of bringing it back to how courts work, okay? Well, there's some high profile cases that are out there right now that I kind of wonder how it's going to play out based on people's life experiences and how they feel about certain topics and their own morality. And I think, where my head goes, and, because again, Michelle and I talked about this when we were going over this topic. We did our own version of Sidebar today. Luigi Mangione, right?
Yeah.
How, you think it's a slam dunk, guy kills somebody in early morning, almost broad daylight. It's pretty clear that he did it. But will he wind up going to prison? I mean, because what happens, would a jury nullify that? Because in their mind, they might be judging the action, and are they going to judge the action, or are they going to judge the intent? Are they going to say, hey, my dad got sick and got turned down by an insurance company. Screw insurance companies and screw anybody that's a part of them. And you know what? And now, to me, murder's murder and murder's bad, and especially when it's cold-blooded murder like that. But in the back of my mind, I do, I understand someone's opinion. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I sure do understand someone's point of view that got turned down by their insurance company and got screwed over, and they kind of sit there and quietly root for somebody like that. Again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand the perspective. So that there is that bit of moral relativism that creeps into society as well. Now, I think when we start talking vigilante justice, we're going down a dangerous road. Yeah. But, there's certainly an aspect to society where that's always been there. It's always kind of lurked in the shadows. And so that's another part of this topic that I was thinking about, and relative to court and LawTube and all that stuff. How is that going to play out? In all probability, yeah, he's going to go away for murder, but maybe not, because again, he did. And also people talk about, oh, he's such a good looking guy, and there's so it's that's going to be an interesting part of this too, right?
Yeah. And if Lindsay has to hear what friggin' shoes he's wearing to court one more time.
She doesn't make that
my
point.
Gosh.
Oh, it's such a we live in interesting times. It's just, I don't know.
I get
Sometimes
everything.
I wonder how we hold it together. I really do. I really do. I look outside.
Duct tape and chicken wire.
Something. My goodness.
Michael, I get everything that you said there. But the Christian in me can't get there. Even I can't in any way look at it and go, yeah, I see where people would root for that. It's just evil.
It is. I'm not disagreeing.
I know you're not. I'm just.
But there's. I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't understand it. I mean, I get it. I get. Somebody that you feel has hurt somebody else, for the almighty dollar, and you feel like that person has harmed your family, even if that person themselves wasn't the person that made the call, but they're part of the policy making that maybe shaped that. You feel like that the buck stops with somebody, and it's going to be that person, and you feel as though, right or wrong, you feel that person, screwed you over. And so now they're gone and you're not sad about it. I mean, that's one of those things. It's, so I get it. Again, if I was on a jury, yes, I would find him guilty because that's the law, right? And that's what I'm there to do. I'm there, did he or didn't he, right? That's what the trial is about to me. But I'm not, this is where it comes back to what we've been talking about. I'm not the person sitting next to me in the jury box. I'm Michael Groff. I'm not Joe Smith. I have lived my life and have my own experiences, and we're all supposed to be there to do the same thing. But as Dan said, that's not necessarily reality. Reality is everybody has their own experiences and will act based upon their experiences.
We have a rich history in this country for arguing over ideas. If you look back at every kind of dark and parts of our history, it's really about fighting over ideas, and we fight them in court. And I don't know. I just we somehow we've held this union together longer than any other liberal democracy on the face of this planet in the history of this planet. And somehow we make it work. And we're a big country. We got a lot of ideas. We disagree on things, and we certainly absolutely judge. That's why we have judges. That's why we have juries. That's why we have grand juries, so they can, folks that can look at the fine print and kind of size up the defendant when they're on the stand, if they want to take the stand. And, we judge, and we what job do they have? How do they dress? How do they speak? Do they have credibility? But I don't know. I love that system that it is dispassionate. It's almost like a surgical room of judgment in the courts. So some like to go to church. I love to watch TCF. That's my church, because I feel at peace at court, because darn it, there's rules, and it's surgical, and it's not perfect, just like any surgery isn't, but it's the best darn thing we've got, and it seems to be doing really well. So keep on judging, keep judging. Voir dire these people, and they can be shamed as well. I mean, you're gonna have to, for instance, if let's say you get in trouble and you have a charge, every time I go to apply for a job, I'm gonna have to check a box that says I've been arrested and I have a conviction. That's shameful, and you're gonna have to live with that, because you have a record for the rest of your life, and judges are really good about explaining that to people who are going to take a plea deal. You understand that this doesn't go away. You can't do oops, judge, I made a mistake, I would like to take this back. So I think there is built-in shame, but it may not be the shame that some of us might want on the panel in Sidebar here, but I think it's a more surgical shame.
Surgical shame.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
That's interesting.
Ponder that.
That's an interesting point, Bailey. And yeah, and what we're talking about, if people were judged before they even got to court, they might not be there. So that's kind of what I was thinking when I was coming up with the topic or points about this topic, because I was like, we've been talking about society and how systems are broken. Well, the system, the family unit, or the community that's broken is perhaps causing, because of that lack of judgment, is causing an effect on the other side. So definitely.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking when I came up with this topic is these people, so many get to court, and I think this is a video that's going up tomorrow, and I don't think we saw it live, but it doesn't matter. There was a 17-year-old in front of Judge Boyd. And I forget what I remember now. So the 17-year-old had a gun, and his brother got shot by the gun. It was all accidental. I think the brother survived. Pretty sure he did. But anyways, this 17-year-old was in front of Judge Boyd being sentenced on this stuff. And Judge called out the fact that he already seems to have some gang affiliation. He already is all tattooed up. He's already exuding this kind of thug behavior mentality. And Judge called him out on it. And Judge actually went so far as to say that he was insulting his ancestors who worked so hard in the black community to get him the advantages that he has now, and he's pissed them away.
That is not the first time I've heard Judge Boyd do that, but it's pretty rare. So that'll be a great video to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
pretty sure that's going up tomorrow. But
man, he must have really got under her skin.
Yeah, but the thing is,
wow.
Again, if he had had the people around him, his family, his church, his whatever, from an early age,
Right.
start sitting in judgment of him and calling out the rights and the wrongs and properly guiding him, would he have been in that position now? Now, there's always a chance, you can raise people perfectly and they can still stray.
Yep.
But if you're playing the odds, would that kid have been in front of Judge Boyd getting the crap torn out of him and being told how much he's insulting his ancestors who died to get him the benefits that he has now and pissed away? That's kind of what I'm talking about. We've lost that. We've lost that ability to, from a young age, tell little Johnny to stop effing up and to be critical.
Yeah.
And it used to be that the whole neighborhood would be critical.
Yeah.
I would not misbehave at my best friend's house because best friend's mom would have torn me a new one if I did.
Yes.
Now, if you do that, you're probably going to be dragged into court. All of the stuff, and be judged there because you decided to judge. It's so broken.
Yeah.
But it's broken we've broken all
In
the
the
wrong
wrong
things. We
ways.
talked earlier about this whole idea of like going back to the 50s and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because something was in the past doesn't mean it was wrong. And no, I don't want to go back to the 50s where everybody was smoking like a chimney. No, thank you. However, and everything was done with gelatin. Nobody knew how to cook back then either. Look at some of the old cookbooks. They're gross.
They're bad.
Steak and donut sandwich, please.
But it doesn't mean that we can't learn from things that we had in the past, and it doesn't mean you throw away everything that was in the past. And one of the things that we did a lot better in the past was accountability and judgment within our communities.
Yeah, not go on social media. Yeah, go on social media like, did I do a bad thing? Yes or no? Like, come on, people.
Validation.
Come on. Like, stop.
But, I mean, let's face it, folks. I mean, people are busy. They got to punch the clock. They got to get the kids to soccer practice and... they don't necessarily have all the time. They got to get groceries on the table, and it's freaking expensive. And nobody really has the time or the wherewithal, I think, really to do anything other than when they get home is throw on their sweats, put on the Netflix, put in the DiGiorno pizza, and, and maybe they don't have the, like I said, the bandwidth for the nuance to, I don't know, and they don't have the time to catch up on Court and C-SPAN and Meet the Press. They're busy. We got bills to pay and jobs we got to work. And
Bailey,
so, yes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but we see all these people in court that don't have jobs. Yeah. And we see people that are just sitting at home doing nothing.
Right. They're playing video games and playing with and they're not going out and getting jobs. They don't know how to talk. Like Dan was saying in the previous sidebar.
I know you're the socially responsible person.
A man who's not held accountable, or any human being, I'm sorry, you are an animal out there.
Right.
You might as well be an animal. You're out of control. You know what I mean? Like, and we're raising people and going out there, and it's all about their feelings. Little Johnny, little Janie. I haven't been able to leave my house unsupervised until about the age of 16 years old. So I've never really been able to just be outside of my parents' house and play and learn how to negotiate and all these life skills and overcome anxiety. And I hear crazy things even from Uber drivers who they'll drop somebody off at a house at the address, but they intentionally give the wrong address because they don't want the Uber driver to know where they live. So they'll drop them off and then the Uber driver will drive away. And then the Uber driver will see them walking 4 houses down and then going to a different house. And that's the level of anxiety that we're raising with these people. So I kind of judge them in that regard. Mostly the parents, I guess. It's like you're raising these kids who, you know what, they were raised without judgment. They were raised with only support and bulldozering support and helicopter support. And the parent is always going to take the side of the student over
The
their
friend, parent.
right, exactly, instead of the teacher.
Gotcha.
I got in trouble at school and I got in trouble at home. Nowadays, there's no accountability. It's like you hurt Bailey's feelings at school, but this teacher needs to get fired and all that BS. So you raise a generation of people like that, and on this, it does not surprise me we have these issues, and that it takes a judge to really choose someone's butt and wake them up. And Dan, I wish I could wave a magic wand, like Judge Oakley said, and these types of family issues, because it starts here, it starts with the local community. I wish we could, I don't know. And I'm sure judges, if we could get a judge, we need to get a judge on this show for an interview. We have to secure that. That has to be a thing that happens in the next whatever. But
Here's the
ask
thing.
them,
I'll see what I can do.
here's the thing, and like get their perspective on, like, you know, I think when judges, like I said in the previous show, if they're chewing your butt, that means they care. If they don't chew your butt, they're doing the very minimum and they just get out of here. I'm checking boxes. But I think if a judge is chewing your butt, they actually care and they really don't want to see you in front of them again. They don't want to send you to jail. And unfortunately, they got caught up in the system. We've seen the statistics. They go there and a judge has to be a judge.
Yeah.
All right. Per our normal arrangement, what have we done?
Not solved anything.
Solve nothing.
Exactly. But it was a good discussion, I thought.
It was fun.
Yeah.
And I think
We
that
only
we're all in agreement
scraped
that
the
we're-
iceberg.
I think we're all in the agreement that we're missing something in our world right now.
Yeah.
I think we're missing a level of accountability, and we're missing the ability to hand out criticism and also take it. And perhaps the world would be a little bit better if we could put that back in place. But what are the odds? Probably not that great.
I disagree. I have hope. Dan.
Okay.
It's communities
I
like
am
this.
not that optimistic.
Hope in one hand. How does the rest of that go?
I don't know.
Oh.
Two
Yeah.
in the other, see which one fills up
Yep.
first.
Yeah, that thing.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
But,
I know.
but look, I would like to be glass half full and hope we can find a way. I just don't know what that path is. But
I think we're
hopefully we'll
already
find
on
it.
that path.
I hope so.
At risk of filibustering, I know we're going over.
No, that's fine. I don't pay by the minute here for the stream, so we're good.
I think what's really special about this channel and Sidebar is, you know, I've said it many times, it's really just a masterclass in rhetoric and how to have, you know, fair and honest, open debate and good judgment that's done with heart and mind and, you know, of course, law, and we're talking about those kinds of things. But I think what you bring to kind of the interwebs is a community that really does care about community and really does care about obviously law here, and we kind of come together and I don't know, it's very beautiful. And I didn't know this existed on the internet. I always thought it was just it's all bad, and there's a lot of, you know, hate comments and things like that. But every time I start my morning, you know my friends are going to be in the chat, Barb, everybody in the chat tonight that support us, that I see every day. We check in on each other all the time. And Barb's birthday was the other thing. And we were texting each other, making sure, hey, make sure we get a comment out there, because it was like a Sunday. You know, we take care of each other. And I think that matters. And I think it's beginning to resonate with our viewers. It's the little things, I think, that matter. You know, we can't wave a magic wand and fix everything. You know, I wish I could do that, but we make a small, I think, a good impact on the community, and I think we enrich people's lives. I think we do. I know for me, I do. I look forward to it every morning, waking up and watching the pre-show and preparing for this show. It's so much fun.
Well, thank you, Bailey. That
So it
means
is
I'm doing
community.
something right, because that's kind of what I was going for when I started all of this, to just do it a little bit different and a little bit better. So
Yeah.
thank you.
With integrity. So
Yeah,
I'm half
and with
full.
integrity.
You give me the half full, man.
All right. You might be winning me over. Ashley.
Yes.
Oh, there's
Final thoughts?
Oh, final thoughts. Okay. So I was thinking of what Bailey was saying. Sorry about that.
That's
So,
okay.
moral discernment is essential to a functioning society, and we need judgment to identify right and wrong, ensure accountability, and protect others. Um, but evaluating actions to condemn people is not the best way. It's not a good way to do it. We need to raise people up and hold them accountable and not break them down like we've been discussing. So yeah, I think we need to keep at it and keep building people up and keep raising this community up as well.
All right. Mikey?
I think, well, first of all, I think this has been a great discussion. I don't know if I'm a glass half full or a glass half empty sort of person on this. I haven't really figured that out yet. I do believe that there could be hope. As long as, people keep strong in their communities. I think if we have a strong local neighborhood, strong local ties, we kind of look out for one another. When we see people going a little off course, we just say, "Hey, man, are you all right? This is how maybe you ought to do it, man. Maybe don't do that." I think that's where we're at here. I think all it takes is people to come together and hold each other and themselves accountable, and that's the way we kind of turn this thing around a little bit. I think that's where I'm at with all of this.
I would agree with you, Michael. I have something to say, and then Grandma TCF sent me something that I'll read real quick and give her the final word. But people seem to think that the loving thing to do is to not say anything. The reality is the opposite is usually the case.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly love somebody and you truly care about somebody, you call out what you see when it's not right. And you go ahead and you pass judgment upon what they're doing, and you tell them, look, this isn't right. That's a lot more loving to correct somebody than to turn your head, look away, and go, well, I love them, so I'll let them do what they want, and then watch them fall into disaster.
I'm going to filibuster one more time.
All right, go.
A really great friend of mine in San Francisco, I've known him for 22 years. I visited him last October. And I was talking with him in the spring about visiting him again this October, just for a long weekend. Him and his wife, it's just awesome. I love San Francisco. Well, the last time I was there, because I haven't traveled in over 3 years, I really just wanted to have a chill. I drank the whole time, from sunup to sundown, the whole time I was there the weekend. So I called my friend. I was like, hey, I was planning on coming out in October again. And he called me out. He was like, dude, I've been hesitating to even bring this up, but like, dude, you were kind of just like smoking pot and like drinking from like all day, dude. Like, he's like, that's not a problem. He's like, I don't want to like, but like maybe try to keep it real, and like maybe we start drinking around 1 or 2 and that sort of thing. And I was listening to him, and I remember this feeling of, I'm so glad he's doing this, and I do feel a little bit of shame, but I'm so glad he's doing this. Like, I really needed to hear this from him. He's known me for 22 years, and he had to call me out. And that was the beginning of my journey of, I got to cut back. I got to, you know what I mean? Like, because if my best friend's telling me this, and so it really did change my life. And this was only a handful of months ago. This was not very long ago. So that type of intervention is necessary to, yeah.
That's good. That's a good best friend.
Yeah.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for sharing that. So, final word from Grandma TCF. She sent me this short little story, and this is sitting in judgment in another way. One person harassing and bullying another person. So that kind of bad judgment, like we talked about earlier. Only we talked about it being online, where this was more in person. But she sent me this. A father found out his teenage daughter was harassing and bullying a girl who did not have nice clothes. So that's where the judgment was coming into play. He'd been saving money to take his daughter on a surprise shopping trip. He took the girl that his daughter was bullying instead, and his daughter's punishment was she had to go with them.
Good call.
I kind of like that little story.
I like that.
I like
Because-
that too.
Job.
Because
Yeah.
there is good judgment, it's sitting in judgment of people in good ways and bad ways. And I want to be clear, I wanted to bring up this topic for sitting in judgment of people in good ways, in helpful ways, not in tear them down. I think Wahoo said, tearing down versus building people up.
Yep.
It's about building people up.
Good job, Mama Joan.
That's
right.
Thanks, Mom. All right, so we'll leave it there for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, 45 minutes early for channel members. We'll be back Thursday, where Lindsay should be able to give us the curling report and let us know how that went, because she's off doing curling today. That's why she's not with us. So we'll find some other topic to talk about, but I'm pretty sure 55 minutes will have to just be dedicated to us quizzing her on curling. So, but we'll see how the show goes. But thank you all for joining us. This is great as always. You guys are the best. Have yourselves a good night. See you tomorrow. Take care. God bless.
Take care.
Goodbye.